welcome everyone for today's Hungarian Health Economics Association meeting. This time, for this afternoon, we will talk about the reform of the EU pharmaceutical legislation and the role of the Hungarian presidency. And just to set the scene real quick, over the past years, we could see the EU health policy on the move. There has been a number of legislation issued, a number of compromises reached on Commission proposals surrounding the health policy in Europe. Of course, this is only my preference or my highlights that I've observed, but there are a number of them. We could have started with the regulation of medical devices and in vitro devices, but we could mention the regulation on health technology assessment coming out in 2021 and entering into force in 2025. We could also see that towards the end of last year, a political agreement was reached, or it was getting close, on the regulation on the standards of quality and safety for substances of human origin intended for human application. This is the so-called SOHO regulation. We could also see the four current table appearing and being published by a member of the parliament on the 20th December 2024. That should be 2023. Terribly sorry for that. And we could also see some activity building up surrounding other Commission initiatives outside of these regulations as well. But obviously, the focus for today and the focus over the past couple of months was on a new directive and a new regulation, which will revise and replace the existing general pharmaceutical legislation. And all of this happened in just a few years. I will not take away, or I will not try to fill in Florian's role, but the reform of the EU pharmaceutical legislation has a number of components that you might or might not be aware of, but it is intended to make sure that the patients across the EU have a timely and equitable access to safe, effective, and affordable medicines. And obviously, coming from a health economics association, we get excited by the word affordable. It also aims to combat shortages and to create an attractive and innovation-friendly environment for research, while still making medicines more environmentally sustainable and address issues surrounding development of medication for antimicrobial resistance. So to say the least, it's ambitious and it's exciting, and it's something very worth taking care of. And I've came across this really exciting topic by meeting Ferenc Marovka, one of the former colleagues of Florian at the Commission, who held an excellent presentation on this topic at the Permanent Representation of Hungary. At the same time, why is this topic particularly relevant for Hungary? Well, we are going to take over the presidency of the Council over the second half of this year. We really don't know too much details until so far on the health priorities of the Hungarian presidency, but maybe that's just me. But some disease areas have been pointed out as having special interest, like cardiovascular diseases, mental health conditions, and transplantation. We can also see that the Belgian presidency has started negotiations focusing on the unmet medical needs, and the Polish presidency, the presidency coming after the Hungarian one, indicating that digital transformation of healthcare will be one of its priority topics. And on the other side of the legislative procedure, we can also see that the European Parliament is working actively on the file. One of the rapporteurs in the NV committee is the same as the one for HDR. That's Timo Völken from Germany. And there's also a Hungarian group of people working on this particular file as well. We have the dream team of Cornélia Váradi and Csaba KONTOR, who are working at the Permanent Representation. So it should be all good for the Hungarian presidency. I really hope to hear a few words about them. I will not waste your time anymore. I would like to kindly invite Florian SCHMIDT to deliver his intervention. And also, Florian, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to speak. We feel overwhelmed. Florian is the deputy head of Unit B5 at DG Santé. That's unit responsible for working at the pharmaceutical legislation. And of course, we also have Csaba KONTOR here, who is the health attaché working at the permanent representation of Hungary to the European Union. So with that, I would like to kindly thank you for everybody's participation. And I would like to hand over to Florian, and I will start your presentation as of now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and for the possibility to present a bit the pharmaceutical reform in this group. And I'm delighted also in a way that you have two different perspectives. The Commission, who was responsible for preparing the legal proposal, as we always do in European legislation. And then you later on also hear from Csaba, who is obviously actively involved in the legislative process, which is the current state of play of the file, that it is discussed between the institutions, like every legal text between the European Parliament and the Council, or first they form their position before then they are discussing it together. So it's quite a nice combination to get different views on this particular piece of legislation we are currently discussing. And if you move to the next slide, you will basically see that what we are talking about is a legal proposal that was already presented, published in April 2023, after a long process of consultation, discussion with stakeholders about what should be changed in pharmaceutical policy. And if I say pharmaceutical policy, this is obviously a legislation which focuses on the authorization process. So the way how marketing authorizations are obtained and the way how companies that bring products to the market are supported, how the regulatory authorities are dealing with that in the pre-authorization phase, the authorization itself, but also in the post-marketing phase when once the product are placed on the market. But at the same time, as you all know, bringing a product to the market is not just a medicinal product to the market is not just about authorization. There's also many other players involved, and obviously one of the elements in this revision was also to create good connections with other pieces of legislation, be it the clinical trials aspects, or later on the health technology assessment and pricing and reimbursement. So in legal terms, what we have proposed are two legal instruments. We call it a regulation and a directive. They regulate specific aspects of the authorization regime. The directive more focused on the general rules for placing a product on the market, on labeling requirements, on incentives. And if I'm saying incentives, I will explain this a bit more in a couple of minutes, but also things like advertising, manufacturing, and so on. The regulation is basically dealing with the role of the European Medicines Agency in Europe with regard to the authorization of medicines, how we authorize it with the help of the European Medicines Agency, but also on aspects like what can we do specifically for rare diseases. We call it orphans, antimicrobials, new antimicrobials, and how we can further work on shortages and security of supply as a current problem. This new legislation, if you go to the next slide, you will see is not something which is totally new, but it builds on a long legacy of EU legislation in this area, which already started in 1965. So it's really regulation of medicines is an old story in the EU, but it evolved over times with adding new elements, adding new pieces of legislation, always recognizing that what we can do at European level is creating rules that support the single market, the internal market, the public health goals of the European Union. But at the same time, what is remains in the remit of the member states is all the issues related to public spending, the use of healthcare budgets, and pricing and reimbursement. That is an entire national competence which cannot be harmonized through European legislation. But we can obviously work on rules of the authorization, clinical trials, and so on and so forth. One of the important topics, which you will see in the next slide in the whole revision, was the access to medicines. And if we are saying access, we are basically referring to a situation we are now seeing for years in the European Union, that newly authorized medicinal products in the EU are not equally accessible in all the member states. There are some member states who have very early access to all new medicines. Here, for example, on the top of the graph, Germany, while many other member states, it takes quite a while until patients see the medicine entering their market, or in some cases, companies never launch the product in that specific market. And that obviously has multiple reasons. It is related to economical considerations. It is sometimes also just related to the fact that a certain patient population is not existent, for example, for rare diseases in some member states. But overall, it is a policy problem that needs to be taken into account and need to be better addressed. And it was a long call, both from the Council, meaning the member states, and from the European Parliament, that we as Commission, when we are revising the legislation, come with new solution to make basically this graph more equal compared to what you see now. And that leads us to some of the priority areas or political objectives of this review, which you see in the next slide, which relate to the access, to the availability and affordability of medicines in Europe. But as said before, it is also about environmental sustainability, measures to combat AMR. How can we simplify our regulatory framework? So in a way, this reform is quite a wide-ranging one. It is a comprehensive review of the system after 20 years. And we also see in the discussion with the Council, there are many topics to cover. Obviously, I cannot cover all of them now in the 20 minutes I have, but I want to highlight some of them which might be interesting for you, and then obviously can react to further questions later on. So if you go to the next slide, if we are talking about streamlining the regulatory framework to help innovative products reaching the market, what we there are observing is that it still takes us quite long in the European Union, if we compare ourselves with other regions, to authorize medicinal products. Other regions like the US or Japan or Canada are faster than us, and therefore one part of the element of the review was looking at our way how we authorize medicines and see what can be done to simplify the process without compromising our important public health goals of ensuring quality, safety, and efficacy of medicines on the basis of commonly agreed standards. And one element to facilitate the market entry and the authorization process is early engagement between developers and regulatory authorities. So we added new features in the pre-authorization support. And in a way, we also mirrored some provisions of the health technology assessment legislation, allowing that already at an early stage, if a developer is contacting the European Medicines Agency as regarding a development, to potentially bring also for questions about the development, about the design of clinical trials, the HTA bodies on board. So to have also there a discussion, how can clinical evidence that is produced for the marketing authorization process also be used for decisions of HTA bodies or payers and reimbursement bodies. So there we strengthened the possibilities. We reviewed the authorization timelines and the structure of the European Medicines Agency, simplified the committee structure, because currently we have 5 to 6 scientific committees potentially looking at a marketing authorization, and under our proposal there will be 2 main committees dealing with every application, and that in our view will also simplify and streamline the process. The days for review have been slightly shortened, and there are also then additional processes, or there's also the possibility, for example, for regulatory authorities, if an application turns out to be not fully mature, to say at an early stage of the scrutiny of the marketing authorization that the company has to do a better job basically with the application, and that will also help to focus the resources of the competent authorities on the authorization that are pertinent, and thereby also freeing resources to ensure a better use of the time of everyone in the system. That's just to give you some ideas about what we are doing in terms of regulatory efficiency. If you look more at the nitty-gritty of the system, we also deleted certain reporting obligations, certain procedures, if they, in our view, led to a duplication of things that already happen in parallel. And overall, there is quite some simplification provided with this legislation. If you are going to the next slide, I'm coming back to the access issue and the variability of VBC in the member states. And one of the main proposed solutions in that regard is that we're looking at the incentive scheme we are currently providing for newly authorized medicines. And if I'm saying incentives, I'm meaning an instrument which is called regulatory data protection, which means that an originator company, when they come with their marketing authorization dossier, they are currently protected for overall 10 years. We call it 8+2 years. From competitors using the same data, mainly generic and biosimilar companies, for these generic and biosimilar application. And our view is such a fixed period is obviously providing some clarity to developers, but we think that after our impact assessment, that there is an opportunity to better use this incentive scheme, to modulate it, to make basically some of the period contingent of compliance with certain public health goals. And how we did that, I will explain in a moment. Other important access measures relate to simplifying market entry of generics and biosimilars. But how did we modulate incentives? So if you are going to the next slide, you will see basically again on the left side the current system with this 8+2 +1 year that is possible in total, and that's for everyone. And what we are saying is we provide a similar kind of system, but some of the periods will be dependent on whether certain public health goals will be achieved. And there is a 2-year period depending on whether the product is made available in all member states, 6 months dependent on whether the product fulfills an unmet medical need. So if it's highly promising, 6 months on the provision of comparative clinical trials at the time of marketing authorization. Also, the latter with the idea to help subsequent decision makers to use this data then also for health technology assessment. We go to the next slide. Yeah, this is, I think I will focus on this market launch incentive. So these 2 years that companies will get if they launch within a certain period the product in the entire EU. And the certain period I'm referring to is 2 years for standard companies and 3 years for SMEs, because SMEs obviously have more difficulties of introducing a product in the entire EU, therefore they have an additional years. And whether this is achieved or not will be reviewed in accordance with our legislation by the member states. They have at a certain moment to give the company either confirmation that actual supply is achieved in the member state, or they can say we are not interested in the product. Then they will give a so-called waiver, or they can even not react to the company, which would lead to a kind of tacit confirmation that the company is not barred from receiving these 2 years additional incentives. And if the company obtains positive replies, waivers, or tacit agreements from all the member states in that period, then they will get the additional 2 years. If there's a negative confirmation of supply from a member state, then the company will not be eligible for this additional 2 years. And based on our impact assessment, this measure, in our view, will lead to early access to medicinal products for 70 million more people in the European Union. So it has quite some impact, some positive impact on access. If you are going to the next slide, we have a similar modulation for medicines for rare diseases, this time built around a slightly different concept, market exclusivity, but I will not explain it now in detail, but if there are questions, I can go into that later on. But it's again built around the idea that some of the periods which were currently a standard one-size-fits-all period are modulated to achieve additional public health goals in the area of rare diseases. So going to the next slide. Yeah, maybe then the slide after that. Turning to the other big topic, affordability of medicines, which is obviously a big problem with an increasing strain on public health budget in member states. With our legislation, we can only indirectly influence this. And the way we are influencing this is with the modulation of the incentive. with rules that allow earlier market entry for generics and biosimilars, with a provision that provides the obligation to companies to publish the public contribution to research and development they received for their clinical trials, with this incentive that is built around comparative submission about comparative clinical trials already at the time of initial marketing authorization, because that also helps national decision makers on prices. And then obviously in parallel, facilitating on a non-legislative base the exchange between member states. Coming to the next slide. Shortages, another big political topic where with the new legislation, we increase the possibilities of regulatory authorities to manage shortages through a European group that already exists, that can come together and provide certain measures, certain recommendations if certain shortages occur. We propose the establishment of a EU list of critical medicines, so a subset of all medicines which need to be, because they are very relevant to patients, need a particular focus. On the company side, we require companies to have shortages prevention plans in place to be proactive in that regard. And if actual shortages occur, then there can be intervention by regulatory authorities to intervene and take measures to actually help to manage that shortage effectively. Let's go to the next slide. That's the one with which I want to close. It is about antimicrobial resistance, which is one of the main health threats which we already experience now, but which will stay with us in future and which is still not fully addressed. And that's obviously one of these topics which cannot be solved by one legislative act alone. But what we are doing here with this legal proposal is to introduce additional measures on the prudent use of authorized antimicrobials, meaning strengthening prescription rules, providing certain alert cards to patients and healthcare professionals, incentivize the prescription in restricted quantities. But the other measure is a so-called regulatory or a transferable exclusivity voucher, which allows the developer of an antimicrobial to receive a voucher for a transferable period of data protection of 1 year to another product or another company. And why did we come up with this idea of giving a company to transfer a certain period of incentive data protection to another company? Because of the problem that the antimicrobial, the antimicrobial cannot be sold in large quantities, because then it would face again the problem of creating a resistance for that new product. So it must be used very carefully, which means basically the return of investment cannot come through the sales of that particular product. So the return on investment has to come from other sources. And one of these sources can be this voucher, which then creates a revenue from another product that can be used by the developer to finance the antimicrobial development. You saw I was rushing through the presentation, so there's a lot to tell, but I hope at least with these a short introduction, I gave you a bit more insights to what the proposal is about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Florian. Very clear. In order to maintain time and allow as much as much time as possible for discussions, I would like to kindly invite Csaba to react and share some insights on the Hungarian presidency. As I think you can see Cornelia in the background. Hey, good luck. And asking the presenters some questions via chat are still encouraged, but we will still allocate some time towards the end. Csaba, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone, and special hi to Florian. Good to see you as well. Not only at the pharma working parties, but also here in the Hungarian setup. So nice to see you, and thanks again for the presentation of the proposal. We already had the opportunity to express our position regarding what the Commission proposed, and I would like to share some information with the audience, how we see what the Commission proposed. So first of all, we welcome this proposal from the Commission, because the Commission is trying to tackle very relevant issues, financial sustainability, access, and availability. On the other hand, when it comes to the tools chosen by the Commission, we have our questions and our doubts. We already expressed this. For us, what is important that in this package should really contribute to better financial sustainability of the pharmaceutical sector from the perspective of the healthcare systems. On the other hand, we also recognize that we have to secure the sustainability, the competitiveness of the European pharma industry. It includes not only the innovative, but also the generic and biosimilar industry. So, we carried out the stakeholder consultation in keeping with these priorities, and we had very good, very interesting feedbacks from all the stakeholders. And I would like to jump on the most critical points of the proposal. For example, the innovative incentives, the so-called regulatory data protection, where we had the stakeholder consultation, and what we got back from the stakeholders, innovative generic industries, but also the payers, that the system proposed by the Commission is not predictable enough, and it will not help us to plan our budget, but also it will be very difficult for the industry stakeholders to plan their product development. And the biggest issue here is the so-called market launch, where the Commission plans to reward the marketing in all member states with 2 years regulatory data protection. What is the problem with this element of the proposal? This regulatory data protection will be granted only at the end of the second or the third year of the marketing of the medicinal product. So all the other competitors will only know much later how long the protection will take. And the other problem with the market launch conditionality is that kind of the Commission throws the ball between the member states and the industry to find an agreement what is availability, and the only guidance the proposal gives us is that the member state has to certify in a way that the product was made available in a sufficient quantity in the member states. It's not a literal quoting of the text, but this is the sense. What we can do at the end of the second or the third year, depending on the size of the marketing authorization holder, we have to give a positive certificate that yes, the product is here in a sufficient quantity, or no, the product is not here in a sufficient quantity. Or we can say that we are not interested in the product. We give a waiver, or the product is not relevant because we are a small country and it's an orphan drug, and the product is not. There is no patient affected by the product for the time being. So each and every situation we had to take some sort of decision very early. especially from the perspective of the Hungarian pricing and reimbursement system, too early. So in the second and the third year, we have to say that the product is here in a sufficient quantity. But what is most problematic, we have to give a waiver when we have to decide on a waiver, because it implies the decision that we leave the patient behind. But the waiver only means that for the time being, we are not able to grant a pricing and reimbursement decision on the for the product. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean that the product is not made available to the patients via other means, the so-called named patient basis. In nice Hungarian word, we have it egyedi méltányosság. So this is what is also an important tool, and that's why we don't know what sufficient quantity is either, because the text doesn't say that it's the member states who defines what's sufficient quantity. So we can say that, well, the product is made available in sufficient quantity, but the patient organization may come and say, no, it's not sufficient quantity. We need more for our patients. So and if we decide not to give the certificate, then the innovative industry can sue us, because we are depriving them of 2 years data exclusivity, and we can cause damage for them. So we can end up in a litigation situation, which is the risk we can't really run. So the modulation of the data exclusivity in itself is a good, and it's a welcome element of the Commission proposal. We like it, but in our view, it should be modulated in a different manner. Our proposal is to link the 2-year data exclusivity with a more predictable and more controllable condition, which is comparative studies. So we would reward the industry for data which gives a good comparison to another existing product in the given indication with 2 years. Of course, if the product is first in class, there is nothing to compare to. So there we would give the 8-year data exclusivity, and then we would go with the current system what we have for the time being. So just to illustrate it better, we made a quick comparison of how the 3 position relates to each other. So in the first column, you can see the current system. Then in the Commission proposal, you can see that 6 years regulatory data protection plus 2 years for the market launch, half a year for unmet medical need, half a year for comparative studies, then 2-year market protection and 1 year for additional indication. Our proposal would keep the status quo, because we are also afraid that the regulatory data protection will be at the end of the day longer than today. So altogether, we would give 8 years if there are market comparative studies, then the market protection and the extra indication. So that would be the plan. One might ask that, okay, what will we do with the availability? How can we make sure that the product is made available in all the member states? We think that it shouldn't be part of the regulatory data protection, but the marketing authorization itself, whereby the marketing authorization holder should present an implementable availability plan that guarantees not only for the first 3 or 2 years of the marketing that the product is available, but throughout the whole protection period. So maybe it sounds technical, but I just wanted to illustrate that we see the modulation of the regulatory protection differently. On the other hand, we value very much that the Commission was brave enough to open up a system a little bit and coming with an ambitious proposal. And also our assessment of the situation is that in order to find an agreement around the table, it should be best to keep with the status quo of the regulatory data protection. So that's one big element of the one politically sensitive element of the proposal. The other one is the so-called transferable exclusivity voucher, which is meant to support, it's a pull incentive to support the development of antimicrobials. I think the Commission found the only legally possible mean to support the development of antimicrobials. No other tool fit in the legislation. There is no legal basis to incentivize AMR development. On the other hand, we still have to find whether this tool is good enough, whether it provides sufficient predictability, whether it helps us to control the expenditures on the pharmaceuticals, and whether there are no other extra pharma package or outside the pharma package tools to incentivize antimicrobial resistance-related innovation. So that's the other element. As for the state of play in the Council negotiations, the discussion started with the shortage chapter, and we will come to the incentive chapter soon with the Belgian presidency. And when we see more or less the consolidation of the debate at some point, we can turn to new chapters. These new chapters will be chosen by the Belgian presidency in cooperation with the Hungarian presidency, and then in the second half of the next year, the Hungarian presidency will negotiate the package with high intensity. We are planning around 21 meetings, which is actually, if you take into account that the presidency net time is 4.5 months, it's quite intense. But let's keep fingers crossed that the co-legislators will be able to close on the European Health Data Space Regulation, which is still more and more ambitious, I must say. And if it's not the case, then we'll have to deal with that dossier as well, which will take, which will come at the price of the negotiating time allocated to the pharma package. So let's see how it goes. Our ambition is high. We want to go as far as possible and leave as little as possible work for the Polish presidency in order to enable them to start the interinstitutional negotiations with the parliament. This is the high ambition. So we have to see how far we can go, but but we have to have an ambitious approach in order to find a good motivation to work. And also we want to support the Commission's efforts, because they invested a lot of expertise and work in this proposal, and deserves that it's not going to be forever lasting negotiations, because we believe that the patients can benefit from this package. So that's for the pharma package. And Gergő, I have like 1 minute. I can shed some light on the other presidency priorities if you wish. Okay, so besides the pharma package, we will have our policy thematic priorities, which is not legislative, not linked with the legislative process, but tackles broader public health objectives. So the first is the action on cardiovascular diseases. Cardiovascular diseases are the #1 killer, not only in Hungary, but also in Europe. And we think that it's the time to go for an EU-wide action plan, from the primary prevention through the treatment and rehabilitation in this field. The other topic where we think it's time to for reinforced European action, this is the transplantation. as Gergő mentioned in the introductory remarks, we just finished the negotiations on the substances of human origin regulation. So now is the time to take a step forward. We don't really mean legislative action, but but we have to see how we can reinforce the cooperation between the member states. Because there was an action plan a couple of years ago. It expired in 2015, and that first action plan on transplantation contributed to a 17% increase of donors, which was a huge impact. And then COVID came, and the numbers went down again. So it's time again to do something about it in this field. And also, these two priorities will end up in some sort of council decision. We call it council conclusions, so two outcome documents are envisaged, but it doesn't mean that we won't have other topics here and there on the agenda. We will have conferences and events around rare diseases, mental health, pharma cost efficiency, probably, and we will do whatever comes at the council, which at the end of the legislature is less and less predictable, but we will do our best. So that would be all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olaf. Thank you for the little extra that we had from you. At this point in time, I would like to ask for approximately 10 minutes more of your time because we have started a bit later, but I would like to ask the audience for questions if possible. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, guys, so don't hesitate. Well, if not, you will have to go with my boring questions, okay? And they might not be the most accurate ones, but first I will try to address Florian. So thank you very much once again. So just one for clarification, as far as I could see on your presentation, while discussing market exclusivity for different medicinal products, orphans versus non-orphans, on non-orphan products, I could see that there was an additional half-year market exclusivity for those medicinal products who wish to submit comparative trials, while I couldn't see comparative trials for orphan medicinal products. So is that a real expectations that you make there, that you don't expect comparative trials anymore for orphans, or did I just miss something, which can be the case?
I mean, one has to keep in mind that an orphan medicine developer or an authorized orphan medicinal product may actually benefit from both incentives. It may benefit from the regulatory data protection period and the modulation therein, and it may then benefit from this market exclusivity concept. Obviously, we have designed the market exclusivity in our modulation in a way that it always at least matches in terms of duration the regulatory data protection period, so that it is not lower than the regulatory data protection period, because then it would basically invalidate the whole idea of this additional market exclusivity. Because the benefit of market exclusivity, just to say it, is it gives a slightly stronger protection, because it's not only protecting against generic copies, it basically protects against all similar products. So it creates what we sometimes call as a quasi monopoly. At the same time, the company may benefit from regulatory data protection. It may, through that angle, also be interested to get there the full potential of what we are proposing, and then also go for comparative clinical trials. I hope it's now a bit clearer.
Thank you very much, Florian. That's much more clear. Csaba, I have a hot shot for you as well. I found it quite interesting that the Hungarian presidency took interest in defining the duration of regulatory data protection and market exclusivity and not addressing shortages. I had the impression that shortages of certain medications or medicinal products in Hungary was a much more bigger issue. than the term of the market exclusivity. Is this because we are focusing on one particular issue for who knows what reason, or is this because you're trying to do work on a European scale and move away from the national perspective?
No, it's not. It's not like that, Gergő. The work between the presidencies is organized in a way that the Belgians will do the short. So if they hadn't done it, we would have done it. So, but probably the Belgians will finish the good work around the shortages. So there will be nothing left for us in this chapter. So probably Belgium will not close, but pretty much finish the council negotiations around the chapter. So it will be done. That's why we are turning to, and maybe also they will manage to close on the incentives. When I presented our proposal, our position, I presented not as a presidency, but as a member state who is negotiating. Don't forget that when we are presidency, we are rather neutral. So we are trying to find a compromise between the specific member states' positions. What I presented, it applies when we are not in a presidency mode. And if shortage is a topic still and it's an unresolved issue, for sure, we will go for that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's also a quite exciting insight to how diplomacy and international policy works. So another hotshot for Florian. You haven't started, you're not a spring chicken in the European Commission anymore. So you have obviously seen a number of files going through the Commission system and the legislative system. So in light of the approximately just shy of a year that has passed since the Commission's proposal, how happy are you with the work of the Spanish and the Belgian presidencies? And if you can share some wishes for the Hungarian presidency, I think we would be also happy.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't want to make the comparison now with the chickens, but what we experience is that the parliament was quite quick from the start. So they are in the current situation much more advanced in dealing with the package than the council. But what we are very much excited about is that now the Belgians have dedicated a lot of working parties, and probably they couldn't dedicate more because, as Csaba explained, there's also limitations to the number of meetings you can have during a presidency. So now we'll be seeing quite some dedications, quite some speed, quite some engagement from the council for this file, which we think is very helpful to make progress and to match what the parliament is doing. And as you heard from Csaba, this is not only now this 6 months period, that will continue throughout the year, also through during the Hungarian presidency. And that makes us very hopeful that we will see at the end of the year at least have a quite good understanding where the parliament is with regard to the Commission proposal and where the council is, and that normally means that then in the following year the whole process can be concluded.
Fingers crossed. We are also looking very much forward to that and excited. Okay, let's see if there are questions. Not yet. So I have one last one for Csaba. One hot shot. So Csaba, you have the opportunity to speak to a decent group of health economists and professionals working in the local setting or in the regional setting of Central and Eastern Europe and Hungary. So if you would like to express, and I think that I can speak on behalf of our membership, that we are happy to contribute to the aims of the Hungarian presidency to a reasonable amount of time, of course. So we will not do your job. But if you can share something with us, how would you envisage professional society working in Hungary? How we could contribute to your work?
I would like here to quote one of my old friends working here in the Brussels bubble on the pharma policy, and he said that if we want to support sustainability and better innovation, we need more evidence, and he underlined that we need not only data but evidence, and it's important that in a way the process and the legislation can support, and here you can give very good arguments how with evidence you can help decision making around pharmaceuticals, how to decide what to buy, what not to buy, and how we can make the best outcome for patients. So that is very helpful. As you saw in when I presented our position, we give bigger importance to the comparative studies than the Commission's proposal. So we value it more. So you can help us with good arguments why these comparative studies matter more than just to be rewarded with half a year regulatory data protection. If I depart a little bit from the package, when I take the broader Hungarian presidency priorities, your work is invaluable when it comes to NCDs, but also for the transplantation. It's again very important that you underpin our efforts with this kind of arguments, evidence, and data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will take that with us. We are preparing a presidency, not a Hungarian presidency, but a Hungarian Health Economics Association's rotating presidency calendar for the upcoming year. And we are just in the term of setting up meetings in advance, so we can align topics down the line. So that's the reason why I'm asking, so we can still contribute. And of course, we have the annual conference during the autumn. So just one final round, I would like to ask our surprisingly silent audience if they have some questions. You may raise your hands, you may type it in the chat, up to you. Well, if not, then in this, oops, there's somebody. Okay, there's a patient representative, Gábor Pogány, from representing rare diseases patients. They're looking for enthusiastic volunteer professionals who can help estimate the need for resources to implement the chapters of the new plan for rare diseases. Okay, very good. So everybody who would like to contribute to this novel topic, ask Gábor directly. With that, I would like to thank you.
Sorry, Gábor,
Please.
I just would like to add that we are cooperating now with the European Economic and Social Committee, and they are preparing for the purpose of the Hungarian presidency, hopefully very good document on how to bring forward the EU action on rare diseases. So I hope that a good document will come out of it, and we can also help your work with that.
Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. We're right on time, so I would like to thank you for both of you presenting this. I think it has been very insightful. It's always good to see. It's always good to see an email, to see a face behind an email address. And good luck with the work in the upcoming months. We will keep our eyes peeled and count on us, both of you, if you wish. Thank you very much, Florian, and thank you very much, Csaba. I will reach out to you for a short chat afterwards via email. Thank you, and I would like to thank you for the attendance as well. Please stay tuned for our upcoming meetings, which will probably be held in Hungarian. We will try to speed up the meetings this year. Thank you very much. See you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.